hello, and welcome back to 9 Years in China and Beyond. Hope you're doing okay. Hope you watched a few of my videos. Hope you're trying to keep up on things going on in China, because there is a lot going on in China. Someday I'll get to make some more of these nostalgic videos that you see on my channel, about my time there. But right now, there's lots of wheels turning over in China. And one thing I've been keeping track of, it started with me trying to see what's going on with the COVID deaths and things over there, because I have some personal input on that. But guys, the math is just not adding up. And if it is adding up, it's bad. But there's no explanations for some things. And let me dive into this. It just gets me irked when I see that there's a problem and you never get any information out of China anyhow. So you have to kind of look here, look there, look down here, look over here, and you kind of have to put two and two together to come up with your own facts, so to speak. Now, one thing, like I said, I was trying to keep up a little bit because they've kind of had a resurgence of COVID, and the children, they have some fever over there that affects the children a lot, and so I was checking back into things. And one thing that came up was this news the other day that came from an embalmer, from some kind of a funeral home or crematorium or something like that, and the figures are really unbelievable almost. But then I'll tell you a little bit about my story in a second. Now here's what's come up. He said that there's been around 400 million deaths during that 3-year period. That's a lot of people dying, but I know for a fact there were a lot of people dying, and I cannot find any data showing even China's official count now. For the longest time, only 2,000 or 3,000 people died in a country of 1.4 billion or whatever. Yeah, right. But anyhow, check this out, and we'll get into the meat of this. All right. This embalmer, they were bringing up the fact that in China there were basically 7,043 crematoriums scattered out throughout the country. And from what I understand, this is not even in the rural areas either, where they will directly bury somebody. Okay, so these are in the cities. And during those 3 years, a lot of the crematoriums that I said they could process. It sounds funny. They could process up to 100 bodies a day. But they took it here where, all right, let's just say that 50 people, during this period, that 50 people were dying and getting processed every day. All right, well, if you times that, you get about 385 million people. You got to think about this, guys. 385 million people may have died from COVID or COVID-related illnesses during that 3-year period. America is only about 315 million people. Guys, there's a hell of a lot of people who are dying. And like I said, it's not counting rural burials. All right. So, all right, if this is true, and they're taking in a minimum here, 50 people a day during that 3-year period. All right. When I first came back from China, I came back just ahead of COVID, and it was later in the next, I came back in July 2019, and it was somewhere during that winter of 2020, when things were starting to really explode. my girlfriend, my old girlfriend, her father died. Now, he had some kind of a cancer, some kind of like a stomach cancer or whatever. All right, when he died, remember all this stuff's going on, and they are not in a big city. That's another thing I want you to imagine. They are not in a big city. When he died, it was the third day before they could come get his body. So they were so overwhelmed with people dying that it wasn't until the third day after her father died that they could come get the body. But that should tell you something. And listen, like I said, I know this for a fact. I almost married this girl, and she would have no reason ever to lie to me or even know why she was telling me this. I wasn't asking her. She was telling me, okay? So can you imagine having your father or Uncle Joe or Grandma Betty or whatever, she dies and you just wrap them up in a sheet and stick them in a corner in these small Chinese apartments. Maybe you say hello when you walk by or, oh, Dad, I'm sorry, or whatever. All right. And if you pay attention, you can dig up. There are lots of little video clips out there on the internet showing bodies lined up and down the street waiting to get into the crematoriums, cars waiting to get their relative or whoever passed away, getting them in to the crematorium. And this stuff is readily available on the internet right now. Okay? That is awful. That is just god awful that many people could have died. And we'll never know the official figures. Like I said, but these recent figures came up from an embalmer somehow that got interviewed somewhere on YouTube, and I just happened to pay attention to the video. All right. That's bad enough that math doesn't really add up. Now let's talk about something else. But we're still talking about math. As you know, they stopped reporting the youth, the young people's unemployment, from ages like 16 to 23 or whatever it is. There's a range there of young people. And they stopped reporting the unemployment. We know it's somewhere between 26 and 46% of the people in that age are not finding jobs, or they're not finding the jobs that they went to school for. And I suspect that's a lot of it. You go to college and you study marketing or accounting, whatever it is, you want to find a job at least related to your study, right? So it wasn't a waste that you went to school. All right, so you got this unbelievably high number of young people cannot find their jobs, and every year you get about 10 million new college graduates. They're hitting the road trying to find a job, and a lot of them think, and here's another bad thing too, during the time I was there, everybody wanted to go to Shanghai. Shanghai was the Shambhala of employment. Yeah, they got jobs in Shanghai. They also got a ton of people competing for those same jobs. The cost of living is so much higher. So they're going to Shanghai and Beijing and Shenzhen, these big cities that have some technology and lots of international jobs. And they're there on a whim hoping to get a job. And I think now that, the job market in Beijing is going down fast. So I think now you're about to see another push. The people are going to go back to their home cities or their home provinces and try to find a job. Remember, any job is better than no job. They might have went to Shanghai hoping to make, say, 15 to 20,000 yen a month. And if they go back to their hometown and say they want to be a teacher or whatever, and they only make 4 or 5 1,000 yen a month. Well, that's better than goose egg, right? And it's a job that's related to their field. So better to be a little above a goose egg than no egg at all, right? Okay. So imagine that. We got a huge youth unemployment movement. We got the lie flat thing where the kids just don't want to do anything because they just can't find a job or can't find an acceptable job. Okay. All this stuff is bad. It's bad, guys. I'm not trying to make anything up. I'm not telling you anything that's not in the news already. Here we're about to get into another math problem. All right. You got all these kids, and I say kids, just, young people. They're not finding a job. You had a potentially astronomical number of people dying from COVID. All right. Well, if 400,000 people, 385,000 people died, now here's my addition. 400 million people die, and the kids can't find a job. Who died? If you had that many people die, surely to God there is 2 or 3 jobs out there for somebody. You're starting to get the drift. You see all this stuff that's on YouTube or in the media, about the young people of China, and unemployment's high and housing's astronomical, and China's hollering for babies now. They want you to have as many babies as you can. When I first went there, the one-child thing was going on, and if you had twins, you could keep that one. And it's slowly, Xi Jinping came into office, and that's another story. But they've moved and moved and moved gradually, and now it's like, hey guys, get married. We'll even send you an extra 1,000 yen if you're under 27, get married and start having a family. Whatever. But millions and millions and millions of deaths. People are not finding their jobs. Well, who died? Who died? Did everybody that died, were they old? Were they old children? People that didn't have jobs? See, that's where I cannot find any information. But you think if that many people died, these people over here could at least find a job. It's just a numbers game. It's a math problem. And it's an easy one. Even me, at 59, an American, a stupid old American, can figure out that there should be jobs. Should be. So, why? It's so difficult to get any information out of China. You know that. Everybody knows that. It's a communist society. It's just tough. But there's got to be something to it. And I'm going to keep investigating, trying to find out more. But I want you to think about what we've talked about here the last few minutes is these deaths, these people that are not finding jobs, and it's tough. And there's lots going on, too. Here's another deal. My students, well, all right, let's start. They passed some rules here not long ago about after-hours teaching in China. Okay? And this is not just for foreign teachers. This is for Chinese teachers. So after 5 o'clock or whenever the kids get home from school, China does not want the families to spend the extra money for extra tutoring. They don't want any more money spent on these after-hours language schools or whatever tutoring. All right. And one of my students I had in Changzhou, she was just told that she will be losing her job here in the next few weeks because the crackdown is about to start. And she was having classes every day, like starting at 3 o'clock and going into the evenings. So here we go. They're about to crack down on this. So here's more people going to be thrown into this pool where they need to find jobs. And jobs are super competitive. Even to teach grade school now, they want you to have a master's, unless you're from some little bitty, town, where they'll take you no matter what. They want you to try to have a master's just because the competition is so ridiculous. It's just way too many people for a finite number of jobs. And the same with the young people figures. Remember those young people that don't go to college, those 2 out of every 5 or whatever it is that don't get to go to college, they don't make a good enough grade on their entrance exams, whatever it is, those are the people that you go into the restaurants that are working, you're working on the street, they're selling clothes. It's those people that you see every day, probably going in and out of stores every day, that could not go to college or could not afford to go to college. See, there is so much going on in China, and it's hard to get a grasp on. All right, and before I wind up here real quick, this all of a sudden super push to get married, have babies, all that. Well, having babies, remember, if you did have 380 million people die of COVID-related illnesses or COVID, somebody's got to take their place. All right. So now China's, saying, well, let's go have some babies. All right. Well, even if they start having babies, even if the people decide they still want to get married instead of having a career, so that's another issue too. That'd be for a whole other video. Those babies, if everybody gets married today and makes love, and 9 months later we all have babies running around all over the place, it's going to be over 20 years before many of them are worth anything to society. Think about it. It's just math. Everything today is just math, guys. But think about it. Have those babies. They got to go to school. They got to run through school, and no idea what the future awaits. All right. So anyhow, lots of stuff to think about, and I'm just hitting the tips of the icebergs today. I want to talk about a lot of these purges that are going on. There's lots of things going on, but let's just deal with some math today, and I just want you to think about what I said, okay? So anyhow, you have a great day, and I'll see you really soon with another video. Don't forget to like and subscribe, okay? I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.